So, does anyone have any ideas about what this might mean? Ben Moyeshe, you had 3 measures for my Chinese chant. Which one? What did you say when I came in, Ben Moyeshe? Oh, a music lesson. It's a barcode. I think if we were given enough time, we would all be able to attach significant meaning to this and believe in it completely. And of course, we see it as inherently existent. So what this actually is I just took apart this word. So this is actually this. So, does anyone know what this word is? If you're from France, what do you think, Lana? Yeah. Yeah, how many people have been there? So, if you're guessing, what might you guess it means? So, we all have, if you've been to this place, you have an experience with this. It's a town in the Canadian Rockies. It's a beautiful little treasure in this, it's in the Canadian Rockies. It's an absolutely stunningly beautiful place. Yes, it's a tourist town, so there's that going on. But all you have to do when you're in the center of Banff, on Banff Avenue, is you just have to raise your gaze. And there are all these stunning mountains surrounding the whole town. But it doesn't stop there for me, because I have all of these other stories that just explode in my mind just looking at this word. Just looking at this word, I'm flooded with actually 5 decades of experience. Because this is the place where my grandparents lived. This is where my maternal grandparents lived. And this is where we'd go to every year, twice a year, 3 times a year, and all the family would go there. We'd get together and sing songs, and the aunts and uncles would tell stories, and we'd go there at Christmas. And so in the case of my family, this meant getting in a car without seat belts, Christmas Eve, heading off in a snowstorm for 5 hours on really poor roads, making our way to Banff for Christmas Eve. And then this is also the underpinning of my spiritual start in life, because my grandfather was a Catholic, and so once we got to Banff, it was just a few hours away from midnight mass. And so as a child, that was a non-negotiable. I don't know how it happened, I can't quite remember this, but somehow we all got to midnight mass. And, that was just a given. And so now, at the Abbey, I think if Venerable Children suggested we were going to do practice at midnight, there might be a revolt. But, for midnight mass when I was a kid, it was just something you did, and the next day everyone's sort of like in delirium because you're up until 2 a.m. And then, of course, there's a Santa Claus thing, and I was convinced that Santa Claus originated from Banff. So there's this whole other thing. And then, just going back to midnight mass, I loved it as a kid. I mean, there was candles, there was incense, and there was bells. And there were the hymns, and I was really taken at an early age by the recitation of prayers and the singing of these hymns. And even as a kid, I felt transported. Something was changed in my mind and body through doing this. That really evaporated after a time. But then later on, I became obsessed with downhill skiing, and this is a mecca for downhill skiers, for hikers. And at 14, if someone would have told me that skiing was not happiness, I would have been absolutely shattered, and Buddhism would not have worked for me. So it's good that I encountered it a little bit later, but the ignorance prevailed, and still does to this day. And then there was going swimming in Banff. I mean, I grew up in a town where there was no pool, so there's a swimming pool. Not only that, there was a hot springs. And no one told us country kids that you don't swim in a hot pool. So we couldn't figure out why 10 minutes in the pool of swimming like crazy, and we're all ready to combust. But those are just things you learn by doing it. And then also in my teenage years, that was the era of the hippies coming to Banff. And so we would just beg our parents to go down to Banff Avenue and watch the hippies in the park. And so the hippies would be doing their thing, and my brother and I would be there watching the hippies. And I wonder to this day if I saw one certain hippie made it to Banff when I was there. I don't know. Maybe. But then, of course, the cracks started to appear to this place that for me was just like, the peak of samsara. And then, of course, at some point, my grandparents died, and there was going to the funerals in the same church where we went to midnight mass. And then the yearly trips stopped for a while, but then my mother and sister and I sort of regenerated we made up a new ritual of going there every year as a mother, connecting with her two daughters thing. And so that kept going until a few years ago. And then in my 30s, I was absolutely outraged because the family home that my grandparents didn't even own, they just rented, was torn down. I was outraged when I saw this. How could someone possibly tear down the family home? And then they put up this very ugly fourplex. And so I could go on and on for quite some time and bore you to death about what this group of squiggles means to me. But it really just is like a explosion in my mind when I think of this word, let alone see it. And then to think about how we all do this with words and images and encounters and looking at someone and forming the opinion of friend, enemy, and stranger in a few moments, really, just by looking at someone, just by having a conversation. And how really it's just so dependent on so many things and what we bring to it through our own experience, and how it just relies on nothing stable at all. Nothing. It's shocking to see what that group of lines and curves does to me and what it brings up. So just for fun, I'm going to ask you to see if you can figure out the next group. Okay. Okay. We'll see. Okay, let's check them off as we go. Right? That one. The A. That one and that one.
And the small bar across the middle.
That's this one.
Yeah.
Okay. The N is 3 of those.
Yeah.
Right? And then the 2 lines for the Fs. And the 2 smaller lines? Oh, thank you, Venerable Children. Yes, you're right. What would I do without my teacher? That's a whole other BBC talk. I'll do that next time. Thank you very much. So I don't know if the next one is right either. Let me just see here. Pardon me? That's the B. Okay, let me see. Let me just double check here. I think that's right.
The first 2 has a bar across the top.
This one? Yeah, it's curved. Okay, so I want you to be really honest. When I put the word up, I want you to be really honest about what your real reaction is and what you think of first. And I can tell you that if you Google this word, the thing you won't find first is a small cluster of shrubs appearing as a single plant. But what this does give us a chance to practice as Buddhists is compassion and forgiveness. And so, with that, I think we'll just end here, and let's just think about how we react to things throughout the day, and what are we basing this reaction on, and is it reliable and even believable?